This is Mac OS Ken.
Apple lays off a few hundred people, more signs of more new iPads, and one of Apple's biggest fans is not a fan of the robot idea. It is Monday, the 8th of April, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Over 700 people with Apple lanyards have apparently had to turn those in, or they'll have to soon. A number of sites, including 9to5Mac and Engadget, found Warren reports late last week turned into the California Employment Development Department. Short for Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification, 9to5Mac says Warren aims to protect employees by requiring employers to give a 60-day notice to affected employees and both state and local representatives before a plant closing or mass layoffs. This gives laid-off employees time to adjust and transition to new jobs. As for who got the warnings, a lot of them went to people formerly on Project Titan. Apple's now ended auto initiative reportedly had over 2,000 people on staff. The Engadget piece says just over 370 of the positions reported in the Warren reports came from that. Over 120 are said to have come from a San Diego office tied to evaluating responses from Apple's virtual assistant. Workers at that facility were offered the opportunity to relocate to Austin, Texas, an offer that some saw as Apple downsizing without having to say it was downsizing. Just under 60 others on the laid-off list came from an in-house micro-LED initiative that's also said to have been shuttered recently. It looks like another couple of iPads have turned up on a regulatory site in India. I told you last week of a report that had two previously unreleased Apple tablets spotted on the website for the Bureau of Indian Standards. iPads and other such devices have to be cleared by that bureau before being sold on the subcontinent. Cult of Mac figured the devices spotted last week were basic iPads, one with cellular connectivity and one without. Now it seems there's more in store. A piece from Mac Rumors says two more iPads seem to have shown up on that site. Mac Rumors figures these are either new iPad Air models or new models of iPad Pro, though it can't say for certain since none of the model numbers spotted in the past few days match with any existing Apple hardware. The mystery should be solved soon, though. As the report points out, the appearance of new Apple devices in regulatory filings typically indicates that their release is fairly imminent. From the Sound and Fury file, a report from Apple Insider says Samsung has overtaken Apple to become the world's leading smartphone vendor. That said, the same report says, it really doesn't matter. It's less a case of popularity, according to the report, and more about release cycles. Citing a report from the Korea Times, figures from February show Xiaomi unseating Apple as the number one smartphone maker then. Apple reportedly took the top spot starting in September of last year, coinciding with the release of the iPhone 15 line. Xiaomi reportedly took it back month before last, coinciding with the release of its Galaxy S24 line. The way Apple Insider sees it, neither Samsung nor Apple can really boast of being number one. While it isn't exactly as if the two swap places to a schedule, it's very close to that. In the past, it has seemed to me that Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives has never met an Apple idea he did not like. If last week's talk of Apple getting into personal robotics is true, he and we have found one. Last week, Bloomberg ran a piece saying that Apple is working on personal robotics, said to be born of Apple's now abandoned car initiative, The report said engineers at the Cupertino company have been exploring a mobile robot that can follow users around their homes. Based on that, I thought the idea sounded silly, but Ives thinks it sounds bad. Like horror show bad. The site The Street had the Wedbush analyst appearing on CNBC late last week. There he said it would be a horror show if Apple actually spent money on robots. They need to focus on AI. The way the analyst sees it, Apple CEO Tim Cook's legacy is going to be artificial intelligence. If they went after robots, he said, that would be a black eye moment for Apple. Two things. First, I thought mixed reality or spatial computing was going to be Tim Cook's legacy. And second, I'm not sure what's wrong with me, but hearing Ives speak so adamantly against the robots idea kind of makes me want to defend it. Here's what I'll say. Apple became the most valuable company on the planet while doing the car thing. They're not the most valuable company on the planet right now, but that has nothing to do with how the car went. Could have been great. Ended with a whimper. Apple spent money trying something. Personally, I don't see the robot thing happening, though that could change. Either way, I think it's neat that Apple is trying something. And I would imagine they can do AI and robots at the same time. I mean, they did spatial computing and cars at the same time. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox and onto the robo-thoughts of another avid Apple watcher. This one warmer to the robot idea. The Street has Deepwater principal Gene Munster indicating that it makes sense for Apple to have a small project to explore home automation, not that he expects it to bear fruit anytime soon. I put the probability that we see a product in the next 5 years at slim to none, Munster wrote. As a reminder, he reminds us, Apple works on a lot of things that never see the light of day. And if anybody knows that for a fact, it's Gene Munster. News of a couple of App Store changes, one specific to the European Union, the other for the world at large. We start in the EU, where a piece from 9to5Mac says Apple has relaxed its anti-steering stance for the likes of Deezer and Spotify. According to the report, Apple has confirmed the introduction of new music streaming services entitlements for apps distributed in the European Union. Basically, they allow music streaming apps in the EU to include a link, such as a buy button, to an external website. Additionally, the entitlements let music streaming apps invite users to provide their email address to receive a link to buy digital music or services via the developer's website. The piece says this specific change comes after Apple was fined by the European Commission for abusing its market position and setting anti-competitive rules in the App Store against Apple Music competitors. For the EU and the rest of the planet, the same 9to5Mac piece says Apple is allowing developers to create and distribute game emulators on the App Store for the first time ever. According to the report, the section on mini apps and game streaming has now been updated to include game emulators. Additionally, retro game console emulator apps can offer to download games, according to Apple. Of course, intellectual property is still intellectual property. The piece says Apple warns that developers are responsible for all such software offered in their apps, including ensuring that such software complies with these guidelines and all applicable laws. 9to5Mac says that raises questions about whether anyone besides the company that owns the right to a given title or platform can release such an emulator. More news in a moment, but first, a seriously important message from today's sponsor, Manscaped. One man, every hour, every day, is diagnosed with testicular cancer. That's the important message. One man, every hour, every day. April is National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. The Testicular Cancer Society is dedicated to raising awareness and education about this form of cancer. They provide support for fighters, survivors, and caregivers, and they are getting support from Manscaped. It makes sense. Health and hygiene go hand in hand. We've talked before about the Manscaped Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Trimmer, cordless, waterproof the way electronics are. You don't want to go diving with it, but it'll stand up to the sink or shower. 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, up to a 60-minute runtime lithium-ion battery, and right now a noble purpose. Manscaped is partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to raise awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. They're not just raising awareness, though. They're also raising money. Manscaped will be donating $50,000 to the Testicular Cancer Society and helping you watch out for warning signs. For more on that, you can visit manscaped.com/TCS. As for the rest, go to manscaped.com and use code MacOSKen for 20% off plus free shipping. That's 20% off and free shipping with code MacOSKen, all caps, all one word, at manscaped.com. MANSCAPED. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. What's Apple using to train its AI models? For at least part of it, it's apparently turned to Shutterstock. Apple Insider cites a Reuters report that says Apple and others signed with the photo service about a year and a half ago. In the months after ChatGPT debuted in late 2022, says the Reuters report, companies including Meta, Google, Amazon, and Apple all struck agreements with stock image provider Shutterstock to use hundreds of millions of images, videos, and music files in its library for training. So says a secret so-and-so said to know something about something. When it's all said and done, Apple Insider says the deal is expected to cost Apple up to $50 million. It won't be knocking off Netflix anytime soon, but Apple TV Plus seems to be growing in the U.S. iMore has the streaming video tracker JustWatch tracking growth for the Cupertino streamer for the first quarter of the year here in the States. According to the firm, market share development, apparently a measure of interest in streaming video on-demand services among JustWatch users, market share development grew from 7% to 8% for Apple TV Plus from the start of January through the end of March. That leaves it tied for 6th in the U.S. with Paramount Plus, which saw the same growth over the same time period. Running down the top 5, Amazon Prime Video is first with a 22% share, Netflix is second with a 21% share, Max is third with 14%, Disney Plus is fourth with 11%, and Hulu rounds out the top 5 with a roughly 9% share. Those middle 3, Max, Disney Plus, and Hulu, each saw their measures of interest decline over the first quarter, according to the video tracker. And finally today, Apple has teased another immersive video for Vision Pro users. Apple Insider says the Cupertino company will debut a second short film from its Prehistoric Planet immersive series at the end of next week. If you have not seen it, Prehistoric Planet is the Apple TV Plus series that combines wildlife filmmaking, the latest paleontology learnings, and state-of-the-art technology to show how and where dinosaurs probably did what they did. Immersive videos add to that. Apple Insider says those are 180-degree 3D video presented in 8K. So far, they have also tended to be bite-sized. While the episodes of the Apple TV Plus series I've checked out clock in at about 40 minutes, the new Prehistoric Planet Immersive will run roughly 6. It'll be available to Apple Vision Pro users on Friday, the 19th of April. Apple Insider says there is a teaser for the short available now in the TV app on Apple Vision Pro. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code macOSKen at manscaped.com. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.